I'm Dean Newlund, and welcome to the Business of Intuition, where I coach, facilitate, train, and speak on the hard science and meaningful experience of intuitive leadership in business, so you can make better decisions, forge real connections, and creatively solve problems to amplify your impact and simplify your life. Welcome to the Business of Intuition.
So here's a conundrum. How do I develop long-term relationships with my clients, which traditionally involves a lot of time-consuming, high-touch activities, think going out to dinner, taking people to lunch, etc., while scaling and growing my business, which often involves automation, AI, and other low-touch activities? Well, my next guest on the Business of Intuition has some really wonderful ideas about how to solve that particular conundrum. Alejandra Slatapolsky is a communications and marketing leader with over 20 years experience in B2B financial services and technology. She has helped dozens of companies expand their businesses and create awareness through thought leadership strategies. She has designed and implemented successful communication strategies drawing from her background in marketing, strategic event planning, journalism, public relations, digital strategies, and education. Ms. Slatapolsky is currently the co-founder of Scalto, a creative consultancy focused on helping companies become truly scalable from a branding and communications perspective. Alejandra Slatapolsky on the Business of Intuition. So it's great to have you on the show. I would like to start off with a question which I often get. Let's assume that I am a leader of a company. I have been able to prove myself over years of execution, and I'm now realizing that I need to start to brand myself outside of my four walls. I need to have a personal brand process. I need to be able to be clear about my message to the community because it's becoming clear that I am needing to grow and scale the business. And because I'm the founder, or maybe I'm one of the key principals, part of that process of scaling is me getting out in the community, telling the story, and having a personal brand. So that is a scenario, which I actually have people right now who might be listening to this who are in that situation. What would you suggest are some of the steps that I may want to take?
So thank you for having me, first of all.
Very welcome.
I get that question a lot just because I've been working with executives for many years. They always associate branding or personal branding with social media, and they don't like it.
They don't like it.
A lot of them don't like it, right?
Yeah.
When you first get your feet wet with social media, it's like when you first enter an event in which you don't know anyone, right? You're like sort of shy and questioning yourself and checking your shirt to see if you look good and wondering what you're going to say to the first person, right, that comes to you. And my first advice is always be yourself, right? And if you have been successful in your business, it means that, or I want to believe that, it means that a lot of people believe in you. A lot of people have been following you for some reason or another. You have been communicating to them and you have built a large follower base within your organization, right? So there is something about you that has worked. And the first work you have to do is to figure out what that is.
And how do you help a person do that? Like, let's say that I've been successful, to your point, and I've got a great following within my company. I've been told now I got to start reaching out beyond my company. Something's working, but I don't know what it is. How do I then know what that is? How do you help me understand what my message is to those who may not know me?
Yeah, first ask your biggest fan.
What's that?
Ask your biggest fan.
Oh, your biggest fan.
Yeah. Hey, what am I doing right? Why did you stay all these years? Why do you work so good when you're with me? What do I do right that has worked for us? what do you think is my special sauce? Most executives know their special sauce. They know what is it that makes people either like them or follow them. And it's not just about power. When you really inspire people, they follow you and they work better for you, right? So first ask them. And also ask yourself, what makes you tick? What's your biggest pet peeve? What is it that really, what are you passionate about? And if it's not passion, like we work a lot with the golden circle, right? With the why. And
the Simon Sinek golden circle,
yes,
as you're referring to. Yes.
Yes. So we work a lot with that. And a lot of entrepreneurs I work with, they're like, what? Like I remember, like I was sitting like a few months ago with one. They've been doing their business has been growing and it's great. And I was like, okay, why did you start? Well, it's a great product. Yeah, but why did you start? I'm solving this problem. But why did you start? What is it that it did for you? And then when I switch the question, when they're not getting to it, I ask, what makes you angry? And he was a financial advisor, and he told me, well, a lot of my clients come to me from previous financial advisors. I gave them horrible products. And that is horrible, and that has to end. So that's a way of finding your passion.
Interesting perspective there, Alejandra, because in a sense, you're helping people understand what makes them tick by going down the path of what makes you mad.
Yes.
Yeah, like there's a really interesting book. I don't remember the name of it. It has to do with authentic leadership, and it'll come to me at some point. But he was the former CEO of Medtronic. He's on the board of directors for Mayo Clinic, and it was a similar process where, in terms of values clarification, normally you would say, "All right, circle the words in this long list that you feel are representative of what you believe in," and which is fine. But he had a different approach. It's kind of similar to what you just said. What pisses you off? What makes you mad? And like, okay, that is an indication of something that's missing. What's missing? And whatever that is, that's what you value. That's what makes you tick. That's part of a pathway into your why. So I find that fascinating that you also have that same sort of perspective.
Yeah. So, and going back to your first question, how do you build that into your brand, right?
Yes.
How do you define, the same way we build brands by defining what the content pillars are that we're going to discuss, by defining the brand story. You are a story, right? You as a person, you're a brand and you have your story. What took you from when you started your career to now, and what drove you, right? And then to start telling that story, tell it in an authentic way. And also make sure that you are varied. A lot of the executives, the mistake they make, for example, if you start, speaking engagements, or if you start doing social media posts, right? And let's say that there's an executive that hasn't done anything on LinkedIn, which is the typical way to start, right? You start posting on LinkedIn and you start being active. And then you start repeating and posting product, posting sales, reposting your company's content, or reposting content from other people, which are all great. They're all good strategies, but it has to be driven by your interest. Whenever I see the analysis of an account, what always happens is that your best performing post is that one that you can tell that it was that person actually saying what they meant, what they were thinking, and publishing it to the world. So make a mix of your interests and start publishing. That's one. That's a way to, build your brand. Another way, of course, is in real life, which is trying to get speaking engagements, which is a really good way to position yourself. Trying to post podcasts like we do is a really good way to position yourself and to have a platform where to show who you are and what you can do for the world. That's really the key to building a brand.
No, that's good. I like the ideas here around understanding what your why is, posting things that you are truly passionate about, that whole sense of authenticity, and then starting to find different ways to get that message out, whether it's podcasts, whether it's posting on LinkedIn, et cetera. Great suggestions. Is this something that people should also be thinking about doing when they are in a career transition? You know, I hear a lot of people talking right now about the great resignation. 50% of all people are either actively or will soon be actively looking for a new job, at least as it is today, as we have this conversation. Is personal branding also important for those who are looking for a new job?
It is key, actually. Whenever you are looking for a new job, it's the same way you do your resume. You have to present what you're solving for in your resume, right? Generally, you say, okay, I'm solving for this issue. I accomplished this, but I can do this for you. It's the same way as your resume. You have to position yourself in where you want to be, how you want to be perceived, right? So that is really very important in your profiles, etc. And also, being in the right forums will help you land that perfect position. For
so
example,
how do you? I mean, it's a good point about mentioning the forums, the mediums. I think that I'll just speak personally, and I'm hiring people to do this for me, and we're actually going through a process to get clear about which forums, after all the upfront work has been done around customers and what we're promised to them and what my why is and all that kind of things that we've already talked about. But how do you determine what forums to brand yourself through? I mean, we have TikTok and LinkedIn and Twitter. At least we think Twitter is viable, but right now we're not sure with what's going on with Elon Musk and his uncovering what could be 90% of fake accounts. But that's a whole nother story. But all of the options are overwhelming. And unless you have a marketing team that can help you cut through that, if you're an individual trying to determine that, how do you determine the right forum to communicate your brand through?
So I cannot give you a specific answer in terms of the forum itself, because it really depends on the industry. So for example, and the industry and the region too, I don't know, if you are into blockchain and NFTs, it's Discord, right? Or Telegram. It used to be Telegram, now it's Discord. If you are into finance in LATAM, actually, which is one of my industries, everybody's on WhatsApp. And I have these WhatsApp groups, or fintech, they're on WhatsApp. You have to find what is it. You can segment it through industry. You can segment it through what time in your career you are. If you are, more senior level, you'll have to search for other, senior level forums. For example, we are part of the Miami Economic Forum here, or the CEO's Forum, or you have to find those networking organizations that gather that type of people. So really, if you've been successful anyways, you're already part of this in some shape or another. You just don't identify it as a place where you'll be building your career sometimes, but a lot of the people are sometimes. But really, it's about finding where it's easier to connect with others. And that's the key. It's not going out and shouting, who you are to the world. It's about connecting one-on-one. Actually, I was talking to a friend trying to make a transition too, and he hadn't been that active in general in LinkedIn or anything. He was, working on his job. And he's like, I don't know where to start. LinkedIn, if you apply, they never answer if you don't have a recommendation. That's a reality of it too, right? So a lot of recommendations happen in other forums. So I said, you know what? At least start by connecting with previous colleagues you've had throughout your career. Just send them a message. Hey, how are you? What are you up to? I'm thinking about my next phase.
Right.
Let me know if you hear of something. Or do you know any forums? I don't know. I think it's about that.
There's so much to this. I was having a conversation yesterday with a person who is in a large healthcare organization, and their big issue, like many right now, is around finding and retaining people for their jobs. And so we've had this sort of harebrained idea, like you always want to keep the door open even after a person quits and goes to quote unquote greener pastures. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if you could actually have a system, like almost like a CRM, a customer relationship management program, that those people who quit your job, quit your company, that you still kept in touch with them, that somehow there would be almost like a campaign that every month they got something about an article or a TED Talk or some resource that you knew sort of fit their profile as a way of just saying, hey, we still love you. If you ever want to come back, we're still here. And sometimes people are beginning to do that. They are coming back to those companies because they realize that the place that they left wasn't as bad as they thought, and they're bouncing back. It's like the great regret, after the great resignation,
yes.
Right? I know. So this whole branding is so important these days. And I guess I have this interesting, I want to resolve this dichotomy that I have right now with you. So on one hand, I'm hearing personal branding so far in this conversation has been very much focused on the medium that has to do with the internet, to call it TikTok, call it whatever, right? It's that social media platforms. But then I was talking to this guy yesterday or the day before, and he was mentioning the value of developing personal relationships as a way to be able to precede a deal, precede a contract that would happen before you hire somebody. That in our culture, at least the United States culture, we're so individualistic, and the collectivism is not part of our social DNA. And that in those countries where collectivism is more important, the relationships, liking people is the first step. Doing business is the second step. And it's very tough to do that, I think, in a social media platform. So then if you agree with this, and those of you who are not able to see you, you're kind of nodding your head a little bit on this, right? So then how do you balance the face-to-face, let's go out and have a drink, which is kind of the old school way of relationship building, with the Twitter post? How do you balance those two?
Well, you interact. You just made me think of several things. So, first of all, when you mentioned ex-employees,
yes,
I call it alumni.
Call it
alumni.
Alumni. Oh, very good. Got it. Yes.
So let's put a pin there, because a campaign for your alumni, it's amazing. You should always
beautiful. I love the way you describe that. That's great.
Regarding networking, personally, I hate network events.
Yeah.
I've always been sort of shy.
Yeah.
But I found my groove in a one-on-one. So yes, it's not scalable, and I'm all for scalability, right?
Right.
So I started doing intros online during the pandemic, like Lunch Club. I don't know if you heard of it. It's, a matching platform for online one-on-one intros. That really works. For networking, yes, you have to put in the time. But if we were talking about a career transition, you have to do both, because you do have to build your profile and show what you're worth, right? And regarding social, how to use social on a one-on-one, you just made me think, actually, of my 12-year-old.
Huh.
My 12-year-old has Snapchat, and she was showing me what happens on Snapchat with kids. And she's like, well, we just snap each other. I'm like, you snap each other? Yes, it's just a picture with a snap. Like, just a doodle.
A doodle, okay.
Every day. And it's a competition on how long you can keep that.
How long you can keep what? The picture?
Every day, a check-in.
Oh, so it's a way to connect with each other every day by using this snap.
It's worrisome because it's not really a connection. So it's really worrisome for next generations. But it made me think of, yes, you use social media to publish. And that was to my previous point. You use social media to publish good content, to say what you think, to position yourself. But you use social media more to connect one-on-one with others. So you find a post and you think of someone, you send it to that person. You tag somebody else. You comment on whatever platform you're on. You make your comments about interacting with other people. That's the whole purpose of social media.
Right.
Phase one is publishing, yes, but it's much, much more engaging whenever you make it about a conversation and a discussion about others. And there are a million different tools for that.
Right.
But you need to make sure that you're doing that. And it's hard. And also, I still struggle sometimes with giving my opinion. And I think that's mostly because I'm Latin American and sometimes we're not that outspoken.
Yeah, sure.
Terms of, being a little, yeah. But
well, it's almost like you feel like, I think I know what you're saying, Alejandra. It's like, well, I remember by the very first day that I went on Facebook, very, very first day, I think I was in Germany, actually, and I was sitting next to this colleague of mine. We were waiting for this team to come into the training room to start our day. And he goes, why don't you get on Facebook? And I go, what the hell's Facebook? It was a long, long time ago, right? So I put my first post, and then my first post was, who cares what I think? Because I was thinking, like, my life is not that interesting, right? I mean, like, this is almost voyeuristic. That's like, I don't really need you to know what I ate for lunch today. It's like, what the heck? And then there's something about this, like, I think that's what you're saying is like, is it that important? Are we talking about stuff that is really meaningful, or is it just sort of frivolous?
Well, but that's the thing. When you're networking in person, are you talking about frivolous things, or are you only talking about important things?
Well, to your point, do you want to talk about my sandwich, or do you want to talk about how we're going to, change the world?
And you're going to talk about both.
Right.
And
yeah, I get it.
What I did find useful is to see what I was interacting with, for example, on Instagram. And sometimes I see people that, record every part of their trip, right? It's like, I've been here.
Right.
And sometimes you're like, oh, that's annoying. But other times you're like, wow, that's a very special place. And
yes.
You figure out and you're like, wow. But in that special place, leave someone that thinks that special place is not special because
right.
they live it.
Right.
So your point of view will bring that in some way or another. So that really builds your brand. And also, yes, it is about networking, but it is about also sort of a social construct too, and contributing to your point of view to the social discussion and to building your brand.
So I want to throw something at you. I mean, I'm sorry. Did you have something else you wanted to say? Okay, you had I could see your face going like yet another thought.
Yeah, because I was thinking about an example.
Go ahead.
I'll give you one
example
and then you go. A few years back, I started working with this lawyer, and what image came to mind for lawyer? As soon as I mentioned it, a structured guy with a tie.
Right.
And a suit, right? And talking about the liberties and whatever you have to talk about, whatever type of lawyer you are, right? This guy, he's very libertarian and very free in a way. And he started using Twitter purposely and said, I'm gonna build a follower. And he, day by day, he was tweeting. And sometimes I was seeing the things that he was tweeting, and I was like, please stop. Why are you saying that? So, for example, he would curse at a football player because he follows football.
Okay.
Or he would curse at something that happened politically.
Yes.
Oh my God, what are you doing? Stop. That's not. And he's like, he gave me the best answer. He's like, he took my advice, took it to the other extreme where it should be, but I was afraid to take him. That was, I'm just going to be myself. And I'm cursing when they are, they're not doing a good play. And I'm going to be cursing at that, president because he's doing this and that. And Of course, he proved me, and his followers grew exponentially. And now his main source of leads is Twitter.
Wow. So his authenticity, which included his anger around a football game or a politician, actually touched a nerve for some people that they agreed with his point of view. May not have been yours. You would have thought, ooh, that's too risky. Don't do it. But it actually worked. I think your point's well taken.
Most lawyers wouldn't.
Right. I know. And there is so much concern right now about not offending people, and there's, we could get into that. That's a whole nother podcast. We'll do that later. But there is so much of that, and you tiptoe around it, and there's all sorts of like carefully choosing your words. But in so doing, you become almost like milk toast. You become so homogenized. It's like, you pick up a piece of bread, there's no flavor in it. Like, what is this? Like, you're so polished that there's no heart behind it. And I think that that's the risk of going too careful, to your point. And I would much rather have people be themselves, knowing that there's a risk that it could backfire.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I have a question for that I wanted to run by you. So my wife, we're having what we call not a TED Talk, but a tub talk.
Oh, nice.
And we have a hot tub in our backyard, and we were sitting outside last night, as the sun was setting. We got into this conversation, and it has to do with what you and I are talking about. And this phrase came to mind, and I want to lay this out, and I want to see how you feel about it. But that connection is not a relationship. And what I mean by that is a quick little tweet does not necessarily mean a relationship. And that I'm wondering if we have become, through social media and our current society being so dependent on technology, that we're mistaking connections for relationship, that we are spending an inordinate amount of time in connection with people via social media, but we're not spending as much time with real relationships with people. And it's partly due to how we view time, that the short-term view kind of is transactional. Think about a Twitter feed, right? It's quick, it's 140 characters. But if you have a long-term view of whatever you're thinking about, your vision is longer term, then those relationships are going to be under that construct of something that's meaningful and lasting. And so I'm just, and I see some businesses are so transactional, and they're so focused on just the short term, this month, this quarter, that the way in which they connect with their customers is through these very quick interactions. But those companies who have a longer term vision and a longer term set of goals, that their process might be also including deeper relationships with their clients, ones that last, year, 10 years, 15 years. Some of our best clients right now are ones we've had for over 10 years, because we've nurtured them over and over again, and they pay dividends. But the one-offs doesn't really, okay, wait, we made a few dollars, but it's not as valuable. I don't know. What's your whole take on where I'm going with this and how it relates to branding?
Okay, so
I threw a lot at you, so sorry. Maybe you need another cup of coffee to absorb all that.
No, I like it. Well, what you mentioned first, on a human level,
Yeah.
It has been proven, and we see it in teenagers, and part of, unfortunately, the trend in the world is about, how teenagers are losing connection because they're confused. They're losing on relationships because they're confusing connection with friendship. Right.
Very key point you just made there. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunately a worldwide trend that has been confirmed by a ton of studies that I don't know the answer to, honestly.
Yeah.
In terms of branding and what a company can do for connection, I think, one of what we call the levers for scalability in our process is customer journeys.
Customer journeys?
Yes.
Okay.
The client experience, right?
Sure.
And what happens from the first time from when the client is a lead all the way to when the client is a repeat customer or stays with you, as you said, for 10 years.
Right.
In our world, in branding, the way to ensure that is through a good customer experience. You want to make sure that whoever is in charge or whatever is in charge of touching base with your clients is really making a true connection. So if it's a person, and that translates into culture, and you know that much better than I do. It's all about who takes care of the client and how they take care of the client, because that builds into the brand.
Right.
That's your brand, right?
Yeah.
So from the lead generation, yes, there's a ton you can do with technologies. There's a ton you can do with engagement on the digital world. But for long-term relationship building, you need that human touch. I'm still very old school in that. And the reality is that and I'm still speaking about service-based companies, okay?
Sure.
Service-based companies, you will keep the client if the client is happy with the human behind the company.
Quotable quote there. Yeah, that's great.
Financial services is a very good example, and I've been working in financial services for many years. Financial advisors, they take their clients wherever they go. Whoever I talk to, they don't lose their clients. Doesn't matter on what bank they're at. They go from JP Morgan to Wells Fargo, from Wells Fargo to Bank of America, they move with their clients. Why? Because they never lose a client, because the relationship is that tight. Right?
So I guess I really appreciate this. This is very timely for me, I have to say, because just today we're going into a meeting with our marketing firm to talk about our latest website. And of course, what happens after that is marketing and sales, a process and so forth. And in our company, we are about long-term relationships. And I think that some of the listeners in this podcast will be in that same camp. So I'm thinking out loud with you that if we or others are in a business where we want long-term relationships, then we need to market according to that. Meaning our brand needs to be about that, meaning that we still have to have a certain presence on social media. It is our billboard, our website, our articles, our podcasts like this, for example. It's a way of letting people know what we stand for, and it gets our message out. But there is a transition into the human connection that then takes it from there. We hand the ball off to the next player, and that's where they run most of their yards into the goal line. Is that piece is around, getting together face to face over dinner, having conversations, getting to like these people, building those relationships, doing business, getting to understand their families, all that stuff. That's the stuff that I think is the real stickiness, if you will, of a company. What do you think?
Well, and yes, and is my answer. Yes, okay. That's one thing, but it doesn't scale, right? So there are other ways to build that stickiness that do not rely on one person. So I've used this example many times, and this is what inspired me to focus on customer journeys. My mortgage broker. I started with Rocket Mortgage many years ago. I was shopping for a mortgage broker. They would give me names. I would be, sending documents via email. The guy would answer, they would not answer, what's my pre-approval, what's not. It was very unstable, all the relationship. They were very relationship driven, right? But I wasn't happy with what I was getting. So I started Googling, I land on Rocket Mortgage, I do an online form, and they contact me. And I talk to them. They're like, okay, I'm going to get you pre-approved. They get me pre-approved. They get me into a system. And the online system drove the whole process. Right? However, I was not alone. I never felt alone. So I would upload a document that they requested. Okay, now it's time to upload your W-2. Or upload it, and they would say, it's approved. Next step is going to be, you have to upload the next document. Every step of the way, I knew what the process was because I could see it online. I was uploading my document. And every single step of the way, what happens? I would receive a call. Hey, I just saw you uploaded your W-2. Do you have any questions? Do you know what the next steps are? Do you need any help?
So the human connection came in at the right time in a scalable online process.
Exactly. So the combination of the technology with the human connection made it a perfect experience that's scalable. Because that's always a pull and push, right?
Yes.
You have the human relationship, but you cannot scale human relationships.
Right. So there's a point by which you have to determine what can be offloaded to something automated, aka scalable, like your example with your mortgage your mortgage story, and what point is absolutely necessary that we need human interaction.
Exactly.
And then would you say then
it's about building the culture of service that allows them to connect with you as a brand, because you have consistency in every single human interaction across your organization.
Okay, so then let's test this theory out, though, because I like the story that you just provided. Would you then say, in hindsight, I don't know whether that company is still around or not, but would you be a long-term customer of them? Would you send other people to them? Would you feel like you had a long-term relationship with them, even though you just had one, mortgage that was handled? Would you want to come back to them again and again?
First, I refer to them, 100 clients already.
All the time. Okay.
Second, I paid off my mortgage, but would still come back for another mortgage. Third, they kept surprising me, which was amazing. So what did they do? They did extremely personalized communications to me for my experience as their client, as I was paying off the mortgage. So for example, which that blew my mind, I loved it. A few years ago, they sent me a video. They, instead of sending an updated statement, how mortgages update, based on tax brackets or expenses, whatever.
Right.
They sent me a video explaining the change. And the video was personalized to my account. It showed my name and my numbers, because they know that 90% of digital media consumers prefer to view things on video. So they had such an extreme, they're a very big company. They changed names, now I can't remember the name, but they have such an extreme focus on customer experience that it's not just about your CRM, your customer relationship management, or your system to serve, or your management system. It's about making sure that the experience of the client and checking in constantly on making sure that the experience of the client is smooth, that they understand what they're doing, that they feel supported. So that's a scalable model that does not depend on relationship building. I am a marketing person, but I'll tell you that if you have to spend $100 on marketing, spend 50 on client experience and 50 on lead generation. Because the client experience, long term, as you were saying, the ones that focus on the long term will have a much higher ROI than the lead generation.
Right. Got it. Great stuff. I mean, I could talk to you about this all day. I've enjoyed this. Alejandra, how can people follow you, your work, connect to you? Give us a little background on all that.
Well, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so you can follow me on LinkedIn, Alejandra Slatapolsky. I'm, as far as I know, the only one in the world. So, and also I have my podcast, thebeatsofwealth.com. So
you got a podcast. Yeah, I think you told me today that my interview with you is on it. So I look forward to hearing that. Yeah, I
went out yesterday, so go out and check it, thebeatsofwealth.com, and Dean is there too. And we had a great conversation there too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your inspiration today. It's been great.
No, thank you, Dean.
Thank you for listening to The Business of Intuition. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to learn more about Dean or Mission Facilitators Leadership, go to mfileadership.com. That's mfileadership.com.